helping create a desperate situation where some people are actually committing suicide because they can't see a way out of their debt situation. And
Yeah, because you have to remember that these people, they're in a permanent debt situation themselves. All right, the government wants money. What do? They just come for you. They come for everything. The government, oh, we're going to go to war with somebody. We need more money. We need more money. Look, the situation with councils and everything else is it's embarrassing at best because coming to take somebody's property over what a couple of thousand. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I mean, anyone in their right mind would just sit there and think, well, I'm going to take that property worth maybe 100, 200,000 or whatever for this poxy little fine. Well, isn't there a better situation? Is there a solution for all of this?
and just to let you know, the Honourable Lee Clegg is guest speaker at the Albion event, which is on the 28th of June. And if you know what I'm talking about, it's a dinner gala, £60 a ticket, I believe. Um, you'll get an opportunity to listen in person to the Honourable Lee Clegg. Well, hello, lovely listeners, and welcome, viewers. Today, I have a returning guest. It is the Honourable Lee Clegg from the World Martial Authority. So I know I've got some avid subscribers and viewers now. People send me lovely comments about how much they enjoy the guests that I have on. So, guys, don't forget to keep liking, subscribing, commenting, sharing. It helps me to grow this channel, and I've been blown away by how quickly it's growing. I'm almost at 6,000 subscribers, which is crazy. Um, so the Honourable Lee Clegg, as I said, is the World Martial Authority and came into my world a few months ago now. I'm trying to remember what month it was, but we were very interested in, and they were very interested in what Rapid Response were up to. A lot of you know who Rapid Response are. Rapid Response, if you don't know, are the wonderful men and women that are out there in this land of ours trying to stop unlawful evictions from people's properties mainly, and sometimes taking those properties back when they have already been evicted. And Lee was watching with interest at the videos that the wonderful Bannerman shares on YouTube because it's exactly the sort of people that the World Martial Authority needs in terms of what they are doing in the world today. And I'm not going to go into what that is. Lee can talk about that. But I wanted to get Lee back on because he it's very complicated. When you first get into this world, it's really complicated. And I'm not saying I'm an expert now, I'm not, but it takes a while for you to get your head around it. And I had the Honourable Lee and General Belton on before, and it's a lot of information to take in. And there's some of the comments on the last podcast were, oh my God, what the hell was all that about? So I think it would be really beneficial to simplify it. Just with the Honourable Lee today in terms of how it came about and what the great stuff is that the World Martial Authority has been doing and will continue to expand into. So welcome, Honourable Lee. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Mel. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. You finally sorted the lighting out. So because Lee lives in a farmhouse and he's got these huge windows behind him and the lighting was all over the place, but we've sorted it now. So I think my first question has to be, when did the World Martial Authority start? And more importantly, why did it start?
Okay, so the World Martial Authority started, I'd say around 2017, 2018. I met with General Belton around that era, and I was already had in motion the IGO of alternations. So the idea or the concept behind alternations was to alter things. Okay, so you have an altar in the church, you have things that need altering quite a lot in many of these nations. So I was in the process of pulling in the kingdoms, absolute royals, and so on around the world, pulling them all together, because they are the sovereign leaders as such. We're all sovereign. The reality was they had an immense amount of assets, but were very cash poor. So we were trying to sort out a situation where we could operate with banks and so on to start bringing this money. And I wasn't as clued up then about the fiat situation as obviously I am today. And then a few things happened along the way. So alternations was put on a bit of a back burner, and then I was requested to start the World Martial Authority. Now, with General Belton, he's the Aboriginal aspect of it, which is primordial. They had a domestic situation in America that was the Aboriginal martial law officers, but then they were all mixed up with the Moors and so on, and and it all kind of became convoluted because a lot of the Moors, no disrespect to any of them, it's just a simpler way to explain it. They all did deals with the governments, and they all took in the finance, they took in the fiat, obviously believing
For those that
in
don't know, who are the Moors?
the Moors are the Moorish, okay, originated from Morocco, the Saracens and so on, and they're the, let's say, the original where we all came from, or as they say, and they were like the first over in America, and the Moors grew on and on without me going into this is your Maori time or your Maori time and so on. This is where all of this established from. So the French, they took the term amiral and converted it to admiral, laws of the sea, and all of the laws that like admiralty laws and so on. They're just all an amalgamation from the Moors, so to speak. But there was a primordial which was Aboriginal, AB original, the start of everything. The earth is Aboriginal, being a sentient being, the trees, the rocks, and so on. And and it's gifted to us from God, or Yeshua, or Yahuwah, or whoever else. It's a gift. So the biggest problem you have is like the Cain effect, where the monetary system came in. But what is that, and how is it controlling everything and operating everything around the world globally? And
So, in simple
so
terms,
the
what
World
you
Martial Authority developed to be that entity, like the AMLO is in America, globally. So this is how we came together.
okay, so what you're basically saying is, and people get confused with the term Aboriginal, and I did the first time I heard it, we're all thinking we're Indigenous, but Aboriginal is the original source. What you're saying is the original source of where we live is the trees, the rocks, the water, and everything else. The Moors believed that they were the first inhabitants of America, but that isn't true. There was something prior to that.
Yeah, it was called the Tamarica, ancient American lands. All right, so we can go without me, picking things or looking at things again, because you're just picking my brain. I don't read off scripts.
Yeah, yeah, no.
The you know it's it all started. Um, the Chinese were going into America in the 14th century before Columbus even turned up, who was originally Collins, and then they all went to Colin and Columbus and Columbia, District of Columbia, and so on. And you have the Orsinis from the Vatican and all of this. So they never actually owned any of the lands. They legally trespassed on it. Virginia was the first state, obviously named after the Virgin Queen. But there was something that existed prior to all of this, and that was the Aborigines. The same anywhere on the planet. Without the planet, you wouldn't have people.
Yeah.
There'd be nothing here for you to stand on or live off or grow and so on. So this is where this comes in, but everybody owns the lands.
Yeah.
But it has an Aboriginal source. That Aboriginal source is still the allodial title holder. Allodial meaning that not even God or illegal trespassers or anybody else can take it from you. You own it. And this is what we're bringing back into effect.
And just to sort of round it up, really. So you'd started alternations, you yourself, just by you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what made you start that?
Well, because I wanted everyone was the people I was working with at the time. They all had all these fantastic innovations. and everybody wants to save the world, right? Everybody wants to fix the problems and deal with the situation. But I always kept on running into the same situation where it was all controlled by money. So what we believe is, or what I used to perceive as money, until I found out different. And that really hit a chord with me, because no matter what you were trying to push out there, which was trying to help people, it always got shelved. They bought the innovation, they paid loads of money for it. They just scammed you out of the innovation. And I have people that just wanted to give it to the world freely. They didn't want to be paid for it. It would have paid for itself eventually, and so on. That was the issue. But every time they went to patent or went to do anything else, it always got shelved. It always got pushed aside. So we're saying, look, all right, well, then this needs to be protected somehow. But no matter what route I was going to protect it, it never had that surety behind it.
Yeah.
And this is where, let's say, General Belton and I got together, and I was listening to him. Don't get me wrong, I had a clue what he was saying in the beginning. And what the hell are you talking about? I'm just like everybody else, I'm trying to do this thing, but it's not really working out. We've been pushed together. How can we solve it? And then he explained it. And I was like, wow, okay, now I get it. And, like in our last podcast, I said it took me a couple of years to get it. I wasn't the brightest spark. But it was just that awakening to it more than anything else. It was more of because we talk about spiritual, we talk about, the frequencies and all of this, and it does resonate with me now. I never used to. I used to think it was all hocus pocus jargon, and everybody's all boo woo and you're all crazy and all. I used to get the same. I used to be the same, and I went through a few things, and I met certain individuals. And it was with the House of Crowns and with all of this on the Asian side of things, and that really resonated with me, and it woke me up to the fact. And then I came to the conclusion that we needed a world martial authority. The UCC needed an enforcement; it needed teeth, and because it never had it before. And what we've done is something that nobody has ever done before. You had to be a specific individual, not a person, a specific individual that has never dealt with that side of the fence, with the states. Let's say the permanent editorial board, the states are all bankrupt and so on. We've been through this before, and it's everything that's gone. The UCC was developed to place an arrest on the bad behavior in commerce. Oh, that's perfect. Absolutely perfect, what we're looking for. So how do we take over the UCC?
Yeah.
Well, it's quite simple, because you're Aboriginal, you've got first lien, first levy, first right of refusal, you're primordial. If it wasn't from you in the very beginning, we'd probably be operating under some other system now, okay? Even though they all ran off into finance. So what we did was we liened the UCC system. And it was easy to do because it was an all caps lock, UCC, and says financial statement. Well, none of them are commercial. They were cast out of commerce for throwing out the anti-slavery course, the protocols or the clauses back in 1776, because they had continued the slavery. And that's what the USD did. So we did that, and it was really easy to do. It wasn't really that big a drama. We went UCC 1 200, and then did UCC 3, leading the entire system, using their paperwork, and just saying, look, you can't put this on your paperwork because it's not commercial. And then we re-established Aboriginal title, UCC, and that's de jure sovereign. All right. So that's on the the joint editorial board side of things, which is the unincorporated, non-debtors, secured party creditors. We had the allodial title to all of the lands, which is the money. And then we needed a transmitting utility, which is the UCC. So we have a perfect situation here where, all right, the land is the money, not the people anymore. Then we needed to go and tackle this fiat situation, the codes. All right, so you got to remember uniform commercial codes or universal commercial codes. With that is your country codes, your currency codes, your postal codes, your QR codes, your barcodes, and all the other codes that are out there in the world, because everything is codified. We're not talking about constitutions. We're not talking about all these states and all of this and more. We're talking about the systems that are codified. All right, the Swift system has a bunch of codes, MT0012, MT9999, whatever. Okay, so it's all coded. So we sued the USA Inc. and we sued the United States dollar. Doesn't matter about the numbers behind it, because you remove the USD from the number, what are you left with? You're left with just the number, right? It could be billions and trillions and so on. So, okay, but now if you've had a relationship with USA Inc., with the US dollar being the international reserve currency of the world, you've had a relationship and you've had a baby, and that is your national currency. Call it Ugandan shilling, Ghanaian cedi, or Nigerian naira. That's the baby. That baby is bankrupt already. LLC, Limited Liability Corporation. It's an LLC. It's just like buying a tennis shoe. All right. So now we've got this situation where we have the allodial title on the land. We have the UCC. We also have the lien. So when it came to the suit, for example, against the USD, what are we going to say? Well, okay, pay us in USD. We already sued it because it is fiat. It is fraudulent. 31 USC 5118 D and 2. It is illegal or unlawful, felony, to circulate or demand debt. And that's what a US dollar bill is, a debt. Promissory is a debt. It's promising to pay. So the question is, how are you going to pay, and what are you actually going to pay with? You promised. All right, so they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it, so we promulgated, as you know, and then we called the debt and said, look, we don't want your toilet paper because it's worthless. How about this as an idea? Instead of us all getting into all of these battles and you all running off to try and steal some asset off another country and colonizing, doing all the things you used to do, let's tackle this in a different manner. So we have the lands, we have the titles, we have the court systems, we have everything already preset. It's a perfect situation where we can come into the banks now and say, look, we can give you a voucher. I'm the signatory. I am vouching for this, from the living side of things to the corpse, to the debtor side of things. Now this annihilates your debt. You can pay us, so we're coming to write it off for you by writs, orders, and demands. It's done. This really simple thing. I give you a bunch of documentation that pertain to the value that you all perceive as worth something, like your dollars or your pounds or your euros. It doesn't matter what the currency is. You can just write any currency, put it in there. Now, you do your compliance. There's a certificate of compliance. The compliance is already done. Then you just go to, let's say, the US Treasury Securities Department, the JP Morgan, Bank of America, and they'll approve it. Then you go to credit. Don't do debit. Well, you can do debit if you want to monetize and you run off to trading. But if you want to do, you want to stick with credit, because we can write this all day long. So pertaining to the debts, because you still haven't paid the Confederacy debt, never mind the debts of today, all the way leading up to 1971, and then the debts created afterwards are just purely debt. Petrodollar is what? It's not, it's just the name of something. So what we've done is said, look, okay, we can fix this issue by doing it this way. So we couldn't, if we were pushing out a currency of our own for Great Seal per Servanda Nation, which is American Republic, 1787 Constitution, you have to create your own currency. So how would we do that? Fair enough, we could put the vouchers out, and just keep on going and going and going with vouchers. But you're never really getting rid of the debt. If there was somebody on the planet I could write a voucher to just wipe it all out or back it all up, then you can all go forward with your currencies as you know them, be it cash, cryptos, or anything else, fine. It's a 10-minute job for me. But you can't. There is nobody, because it's not pertaining or linked to any court systems. All right. So what we've done is we've established our own on the Bitcoin blockchain, because everybody's advancing into cryptos and digitals, but ours is a currency. It's not a crypto or a digital.
Yeah, you've skipped into my next question. Basically,
Okay.
no, it's fine. In terms of creating your own currency, there'll be people watching going, what? How's that? How's that possible? Because we're also programmed into the current system, the debt system, the fiat system, and it's all
Yeah.
controlled by the World Bank and the central banks and the Federal Reserve and all of that. How can you, I mean, we know about Bitcoin and crypto, but I am pretty clueless when it comes to understanding how all of that came to be. I just know that there's stuff out there you can buy and sell and make a bit of cash on. Now I know obviously there's a lot of people that know a lot more than that, but how do you go about saying, all right, I'm not gonna use your USD anymore, I'm gonna create my own and it's lawful and you've now got to use it. How does that even come about?
Yeah. So, all right, think of it this way. You can use your conventional currencies. All right. And you now under HB 263, let's say somebody went out there, they developed a crypto or a digital, let's say USDT or XRP or Bitcoin or whatever else. If you go back to Bitcoin, which is the original, and you actually read the white paper for Bitcoin, it tells you exactly what it is in the first paragraph. It's peer-to-peer cash, fiat related. Okay. So if the fiat is worth nothing, what's a Bitcoin worth? There's nothing there behind it. All right. So you go to USDT. Well, what's that? It's a piece of string. It's a leash off a dollar. All right. What's a dollar worth? Nothing again. So you've got to think of this. So you're all running into these Web3 situations. You're running into all of these different cryptocurrencies. People are putting up memes, stamps, and NFTs and so on. They all think that they're making money. But it all boils back down to one thing again. It's to flip it into something that you can spend on the store.
Yeah.
All right. So why would we even want to consider following that rhetoric that everybody is always lusting after? So you need something to assure that system. Everybody's looking at it as the next best thing. It's constant promotion of something else. XRP, well, you've seen all the videos on that, and it's going to be the super new currency. Is going to, no, it's not. If you knew how it was originated, you wouldn't be thinking the same way. It's the same as Bitcoin. Excuse me. So the actual reality here is we have the asset. So instead of creating a representation of that particular asset, be it gold, silver, lands or whatever else, in the HJR 192, that is what money is. So instead of saying, okay, we're gonna gold back something, no, the best solution would be to use that Satoshi number rather than a fiat number. The fiat is liened. All right, but people comprehend $1, $2, $100, $50. But you look at the Satoshi number, there's 8 numbers there. Nobody understands, including myself. And so it's got to be translated into a USD value. But if you went to Bitcoin and said, hey, Mr. Bitcoin, where's all the money that's bought all of this Bitcoin? Where is it? Can you show me an account? You'll never see one. There's no such thing exists. All right? The platforms that push it around, and it gains its value by movement, volume and movement. Nothing to do with the cash, ever. And then it translates into the Satoshi number, translate into USD value. That's what it does, or a pound value or so on. So What we've done is we put the asset on. The voucher is the breakdown of the value of the bond. How much is it worth? How much of a chunk are you going to take off this bond, the value? So we've done it in a USD value and then translated that into the Satoshi number. Okay? So now it can ride up to any value it wants. Why would we want to make something a stable coin, for example? $1 is one USDT or USDC or USDP, when you have an option here to ride up with the value of Bitcoin or even surpass it on a particular currency. So we could start off, let's say, an assumed United States dollar, which we did January last year, at $1, $1.05, I think it was. It worked out by the time we got the Satoshi number, somewhere near $1, and now it's worth $2.72. So if you give me $1 of your fiat, let's call it a bounty program, you're going to get $2.72 in return. Now you can go to Trump, who's on Binance with USD1. We're going to get back for that. You're buying something equivalent to $1. Same with the USDT. In fact, it's worth 99 cents. But I've still yet to find anyone in the world to tell me what is the value of one single dollar. It's imaginary. It doesn't exist. There is no value because it's a bill. It's a promise to pay. There is nothing backing it. And if you had something backing it, well, that's fine. All you're doing is you're sending the lawyer out, the representative out of the asset that is deemed to back it. If it was gold or diamonds or property or whatever else. And then you're trading paper for paper. They believe it's cash, but it's not. It's a promise to pay. So that's where we bring in the Toron. The Toron is the assurity. So if I put Toron into a bank, for example, through the system, because it's on a layer 2, if we start throwing that into wallets and throwing it into all these different platforms, Atomic, Trust Wallet, and so on, what it's actually going to do is the host of that wallet system, who has, like, say, 250 other cryptos in it, assures all of those other cryptos in that wallet. And most of them have nothing behind them whatsoever. So do we really want to assure that? Because if you go on any wallet, it'll tell you at the top, do not invest unless you can afford to lose all of your money from your investment. What does that tell you? It tells you straight away it's not assured, and you're already at risk by investing. With us, there is absolutely zero. You lose your Toron, we'll replace it. You lose any of the other currencies, we'll replace it. We're in charge of it. We control it. No one else does. So there's no host above us saying you can and can't do this. We tell you because you are on the permanent editorial board under state bankruptcy debtor situation, which is subjected to UCC. So I suppose I'm getting really confusing again here, but that's the gist of
it. People will be listening going, what? So I lose 10 Torons and you're just going to give me 10 Torons back? Why and how?
You can't lose it because it's on a system. It's on its own unique system. Okay, so you can't lose it. Let's say you lose on Bitcoin. Let's say the entire crypto and digital system collapses overnight. It's the easiest way to explain it. So let's say Bitcoin falls to $1. And you know everything else is going to collapse as well because it's all dependent on it.
Yeah.
Now, the reality here is, let's say the Toron, for example, that will collapse too. That will go down with it because of the numbers. But within an hour or 2 hours, we'll have it ping back up to the price that it was at. Bitcoin can't do that. How can it? How many years did it take to go from $1 to the 104,000 it is today? We can do that in an hour.
How?
We control it because it's assured. It's bonded. It's assured. There is a infinite bond sat behind it. We could put the Toron to Bitcoin value within the next 2 hours if we really wanted to, but we kept it at that rate because we knew Bitcoin was going to go through the roof. We know it's going to go up, but there is going to be a crash at some point. Just the same with the fiat. It's going to crash because there is nothing supporting it. It has no legs. Now, with the Toron, it's fully assured upon it. If Bitcoin fell flat on its backside tomorrow, it'd make no difference to us. Zero. Because if you have your wallet full of Toron and and it fell to zero and you're on a blind panic, there's no need to worry because we'll just put it back to what it was easily.
So with I mean, a lot of my viewers are in this world to a greater or lesser extent, and
Yeah,
maybe doing their own challenging, or maybe just sitting there really angry about everything and not quite sure knowing what to do. But we know that there's this impending crash coming. With it's been there for years now. Let's be honest,
yeah.
but it still hasn't been officially announced, and there's wars and other distractions and all this other stuff going on. So, how does the World Martial Authority intend to resolve? I know the alternations started in terms of projects, and the alternations is still there, um, to enrich the world, and put amazing things into communities and empower people. In terms of resolving this debt crisis, which it is, how do you, in simple terms, how is the WMA resolving that?
Okay, so we have a number of systems. One, we've discussed the digital, okay, or the currency on the Bitcoin blockchain is one. So, all right, so I'll just stick with that for a second. Now, think about this for a minute. You have control, or we have control of the values, all right? So instead of running off with the USD value or the currency values as perceived in the markets and the economies and so on, you got to think of it this way. Now, nobody else can do this. Well, there are a few, but they're going to have to put up their trinkets and their treasures and gold and so on to support it. But the reality here is everything that they have came from the lands. Your gold, your silver, your diamonds, and or whatever else. Everything we have around us came from the lands, and it's a manifestation like this table, this computer, that cup, and so on. All right, so the lands were never paid for because it was a gift to the people of the world. Now, the systems itself, think of it like, all right, so we're using Satoshi numbers now. We're not using the fiat numbers. That's already been sued and done in the codes. So we're going to have to use a different system. So we use this conventional currency at this because there is no other alternative at this time. The USD was supposed to have gone out of circulation in 1976 after the gold standard was removed, which it didn't because there was no other alternative. So then these alternatives like Bitcoin and so on came into effect. They had to find another way of doing it, but it's just a reinvention of the debt. So what we have with our bonds is saying, look, okay, we'll use the Satoshi number. The easiest and quick fire way of getting rid of a debt is utilizing something else. There's got to be something that will clear the debts or, bring in a remedy and a resolution. So you have the SDG action, I think it's 27655, which was supposed to have been put on the UN to eliminate all debts in 2015. We're in 2025 now, and there's still nothing there. Nobody's written it because they don't know the answer. So the answer was always going back to the primordial. Now, if I was to say, all right, there is 2,600 Ugandan shillings to one Bitcoin, $1. How am I going to put that figure on the Bitcoin blockchain, on the Satoshi number? You can't, because $1 is, I think it's something like all the zeros and the 19 at the end of it. So you peg it in there. It's an assured currency. So now if I go to the value of GDP in USD of Uganda, for example, I issue that into the banks. You bring me one Ugandan shilling, and I'll give you one assured Ugandan shilling, which will be what? Equivalent to $1. Okay? It's fully bonded, it's fully assured. We hold all responsibilities and liabilities. I've just wiped out 2,600% of your debt by doing that. And it's fully shown. There is no court above us to say, you can't do that because we've already sued all of that. We've sued all of the corporation aspect of it. Doesn't mean to say everybody's going to jail and you all owe us now. No, it doesn't mean that. It means that we can go in now and assure everything for everybody. This is what this means. And it's a very difficult concept for even bankers in the highest levels to grasp. So we have been talking to them for years and years, and they're getting to grips with it now because the vouchers that we issue for projects or for national debts and so on, they're being approved. Well, this is great. This is fantastic news for everybody. And there's not as much resistance as there used to be because they all used to run. They knew what we'd done. They wouldn't admit it. But now there's hardly any resistance. If you do it, if you do as we actually tell you, the protocols and the compliance situations and everything else, you'll be in shock. Yeah, it's approved. It'll be approved, and you can have the compliance done within a couple of hours. Because I tested Morgan Stanley a few years ago. I knew the CEO there. I was having a conversation with him, and I said, "Do you know what? I'm having a lot of trouble with these vouchers. These bankers say, oh, they're all bangers, Fairyland, Disneyland, they're all fake and all." Right. Can you just do us a favor? I don't want you to do anything else. Can you just have a look at this package and just do some compliance for it, just as a friend? Okay. Sure, no problem at all. Within less than 45 minutes, he came back and said, yeah, this is absolutely fine. I knew there and then that there was no problem with the vouchers, ever. But a lot of the banks rejected them. They didn't do the compliance because there is a protocol to the compliance. And the compliance is you go to, let's say, the US Treasury, or you go to the Feds, or you go to somebody else, and they'll approve it and say, yeah, there's nothing wrong with this. We actually have the bond here. And the biggest problem is the majority of these banks thought it was fake, didn't think it was real. But the ones that actually went in, they came back in shock. Oh, it's real. You were right. Yeah, of course I'm right. I wouldn't do it otherwise, would I? So the reality is now you've got a process which will start pushing money back into the economies, driving people back into work, helping out these nations. This is so big that it's very, very difficult for people to comprehend the scale of this. You don't need the forever wars because they are just war bonds being traded. And it's a system of fear and control to put you in there. Otherwise, at the end of the day, if you didn't have that system in place, why would you even need a government?
So in simple, well, I keep saying in simple terms because it is confusing when you first start listening to this, but well, I know when I first started engaging with you and what you guys were about, and everybody's got their thoughts on Trump and the MAGA revolution or whatever, and the white
Yeah.
hats and Nasara Jasara and all of these things that have been around for the last 5 years, mainly in terms of people waking up. So I think some people be sat here watching this thinking, well, how does this all work with what Trump's been doing? The XRP, everybody thinks XRP is going to be the next big thing. Trump's already mentioned it in some of his communications, and people have invested in it thinking it's going to
Yeah.
explode. These white hats, the military's already in control, and it's just taken a long time to take the snake down. So I think people will be sat here thinking, well, how does all this fit in with what we believe to be the white hats, just whatever Trump's up to, etc.
Well, you've got to look at this with some common sense. Okay. Now, we all know that there's no disrespect. It's just an easy way for me to explain it. With President Trump, you've got to look at the people around him.
Yeah.
And you've also got to look at the reactions to everything that's going on. And I've seen all the rhetoric going on since 2016 and so on, since he was elected last time. And when he went to Saudi and he was holding the sword and he was doing all of
Calculation.
this and
Yeah, yeah.
more. And it goes on and on and on. At the end of the day, and then the rhetoric came in, Biden came in because they weren't ready to roll out what they were doing, and then they needed a few years to sort it out. And the executive orders that he'd signed in the very beginning in 2016, giving it, handing it back to the people, and so on. But you're almost 10 years on now, and since the signing of those executive orders. But I think the issue that really sticks out is the fact that you're walking into another forever war, and you've got to really find the reasoning for these wars, like say with Israel and Gaza and Lebanon and Syria and so on. So I think back in the 90s or mid-90s, there was a plan to take out, I think it was 5 nations in 7 years. And they hadn't completed it, and Iran was the last stop. So you ask yourself, what was the reason for Iran and so on? You're not in the 90s anymore. You're not there anymore. You look at Ukraine, the situation there. You look at the situation in Gaza. It's Gaza is what? It's about the size of London, maybe smaller, and it's still ongoing 2 years later. And then you've got the Yemens and the Houthis in Yemen, and they've been blocking the straits, and they've been hitting back with the US. It's not very good. It's not. The Americans haven't got really good history in wars. They don't have a really good history. Since World War II, or you can go to, let's say, 1965 and onwards. It's been a bit of a very problematic end to everything. So it's gone from one to another and to another. They're in war in perpetuity because they trade the war bonds. This is why Afghanistan and Iraq all lasted 20 odd years. Now with Trump, he comes in and talks a lot about peace, but now he wants to blitz Iran. Where did that go? Where did the peace situation go? And I've watched both sides and the rhetoric going on. And I even watched the broadcast or the speech that the Ayatollah did the other day. And it's kind of made a little more sense. Not that I'm in support of any war or any nations. There's nothing to do with us. We don't do politics. We don't do religions. We don't do any of that. Because it's a narrative, and we don't really like narratives and agendas. Like the Agenda 21, the Agenda 25, 2030, and so on. And, it's not resolving anything. It's just pushing a narrative. So whatever that situation is, or wherever it's going to lead to, I think is going to be catastrophic. It needs to be stopped. It needs to be stopped immediately. And, the resolutions, and if you go back to this situation with the NPT and the nuclear agreement with Iran, well, in 2018, they agreed to enrich to 3.89% or whatever it was. And then they tore up that agreement. Well, why would you do that? I know the Iranians wanted up to 20% for obviously the medical research and all the X-rays and whatever else you have in the medical side of things, and then obviously with agriculture and generating electricity for the people through the power stations. But when you tore up that agreement, they could enrich up to 60%. They're not far off being able to create a nuclear. They've got 400 kilograms of it now. That's enough for about 9 or 10 nuclear bombs. All right, I'm not claiming to be an expert on this, but the reality is, well, if they can get up to 60%, I'm sure they can get to 99 or 100 quite easily, whatever that percentage is. I'm not a nuclear scientist. But, that's the rhetoric I'm hearing. So where's the imminent threat? The AIEA went over there, and they said, yeah, well, we found deposit, we found this, that, and the other, and they're not complying or they're not doing this. It doesn't mean to say they built a bomb. So, 2 days before the final meeting or the final summit that they were going to have to come to an agreement, Israel went straight in and, did a Pearl Harbor on them. A Pearl Harbor situation. But now they're feeling the pain of it. It didn't need to happen. We know there's a lot of people with a lot of their own, obviously, emotional ideas on the situation, and people will probably get annoyed with what I say, but The reality is it never needed to get this far. It never really did. I mean, you look at Syria, look at Libya, look at Afghanistan, Iraq, and so on. Do we really want to go back into another situation that's going to drag on for years and years and years? We're not in the 90s anymore. We're at 2025, and we're fighting people with the sophistication now. So, with them hitting um, Iran like they have, wouldn't that want you to make you more determined to have a nuclear bomb, to defend yourself, to use that as a deterrent or use them as a deterrent? Of course you would. I mean, who in their right mind wouldn't think, right, well, okay, they're blitzing us, right, we're going to show them something else. They don't need nuclear arms anymore. You look at the missiles Russia has, and Iran has them as well. And these hypersonics coming from Yemen. They're saying, well, they're coming from Iran. No, they're not. The Yemens have built them themselves, these hypersonic missiles. They've done it. They didn't need Iran's help. Iran was in support of them, but it didn't mean to say that they built it in Iran and then sent it over. The world is buying missiles from Iran because they are one of the tops in the world. You cannot have a ship fight a fort. I mean, if Saddam Hussein had any sense about him during the Iraq War, all he had to do was throw 50 scuds at the entry point where the naval and all the troops were coming in. It just stopped it. And it's a very tight spot there. How were the U.S. Navy going to float around in the Straits of Hormuz without being targeted? You've got Qatar down the road. You've got all these bases all over the place. I know Trump has said, well, pull out, or try to pull them back. You ain't going to outrun a missile. And you don't have the air defense capabilities in Iraq or anywhere else to support it. They've already taken out the Iron Dome. It's like a sieve. So it's
So,
proven. So
so
they've dumped their old rubbish, and now they're going into the sophisticated stuff. And it needs to stop right now,
So
immediately.
it sounds like, yeah, I agree with you. It sounds like you're of the camp, nobody's coming to save you and we're going to sort it out ourselves because the theatrics that we've seen with Trump and Musk and everything else. And then
Well, it's all
apparently,
theatre, isn't it? It's all
yeah,
drama.
and then apparently
It's
there's
for the
been
TV.
some program this week or last week with the Epstein stuff where Trump's shown on there, touching women up and this, that, and the other. And like all the Trump lovers have been adamant that he might not have been in the past, but he's a good guy now. He's a Christian. He's a God lover. He's for the people. But do you believe it's just still part of the theatrics to sort of create that divide still?
It's all theatrics, the whole
Yeah.
system. I'm not, you're focusing on Trump here, but you could say the same for most.
Well, yeah.
Um, it's they're in a precarious position, let's say, because of the state of the world, what they've taken over from others, and the way it's gone down. It's really difficult to fix something that is broken without replacing it. And all they're doing is becoming the cog in that broken system and trying to repair it. Now, whether there's something above them, like corporations, because that's where they get all their money from, um, is driving that is another thing. But this is why we try to stay away from politics. We don't touch politics. We deal with the governments. We deal with them, but we don't accept what they have to give. They accept what we are giving
Mm.
because they're there for the people. They're the voice for the people. That's what they're meant for.
Well, that brings me on to the whole bonding and a surety and
Yeah.
governments and the corrupt system that we know. And I've been very much part of, in my own little struggles with councils and judges and that sort of thing. And so, can you, like a few months ago, you started talking about bonds and stuff, and it took us a while to get our heads around it. But could you, in simple terms, talk about what bonds are and what assured bonding is in terms of lawfulness and how the world should be operating and how these organizations should be operating in terms of giving the people protection and and being transparent, basically. So what does it mean?
All right. So you basically answered the question for me.
Did I? Okay.
So just yeah. So
Good
I'm so used to
education. Good
hearing you now.
education.
Yeah. So the reality is you've got two sides of a fence. Okay. So you've got a law and you've got legal. All right. So the legal is the LLC, the corporate, under the permanent editorial board, which is the state, and it's all under bankruptcy. And on the other side, you've got law. All right. Which is that bonding and that assurance. So if I assured you I'm going to send you 10 Toron today, you know you're going to get it because I've assured it. All right. Now bonding is to bond something means that you are bound it. You've bound it. The states are bound and the joint editorial board to obviously operate in that unincorporated and to have that good behavior. This is what the Uniform Bonding Codes is. Go to read page 2 of it. You don't have to read the whole 137 pages of it. Page 2 clearly admits the malfeasance in that corporate sector. So it's bonded. You have a court that bonds you. That bond goes to trade. Okay? You get arrested, that's a bond. It's all bonds, ties and bonds. So to be bonded on our side of the fence means that you are secured 100%. All right? And in a let's say in a registry or let's say Companies House or whatever in the United Kingdom or Secretaries of State, and when you go to register because you want to flip between the two systems, you register as limited by guarantee. The guarantee is the bond. The bond is from the UCC. You are bonded. All right. So you are permanently guaranteed. You are the assurity. The bond is the guarantee. Okay. And what we have is a permanent bond on the land registers and everything else and the allodial titles and all of this. That is an infinite source of money because even the money that you use and throw around today comes from the ground. The machines that push the money around, the services that are built are come from the ground. The foundation is the earth. So bonding and assuring, it means that you're assured. Now you can have insurance bonds or insurance claims, all right? But even if you go to an insurance company and say, can I see your bonds of insurance or assurance? They don't have any. What insurance company is insured? It's not. Is it assured? No, because it can't guarantee you by the contracts that it gives and the LLC that they are actually going to pay you if you have a claim. Okay, you have a cupboard that gets water damage, you have that on your insurance policy. Okay, it's not law, it's a policy. And then you go, well, I've got damp in the wall and all my clothes are ruined. Can I have a payment because I have this covered under this insurance bond? And they turn around and say, no, you should have fixed the problem. There's no interest contract here. It's not guaranteed. Whereas on our side of the fence, it's law. If a law enforcement or a court of law, competent court of law, not a dissolved court, a competent law or a competent on record court, you have to. There's no two ways about this. You're not going to argue with that court. You're going to do what it tells you to do. Now, in the forms of statutes, which is in the statutes in the name of any law is fraud. Okay, because it's a suggestive practice. You don't have to adhere to it. You can volunteer to be part of it. It's like being a part of neighborhood watch. You either want to be in it or you don't. You're either the burglar or the one trying to help the community. Which one are you? So what it seems to have happened here now, using that train of thought, is everything at LLCs become the burglar. Your councils, your courts, your everything else. They don't listen to you anymore. They don't listen to the people anymore because they're a service of process, cast out of commerce. Commerce was the commercial law. Two laws in this world, the Roman statute Lex Furry, the Angry Roman, and you have commercial law. Commercial law is the same in any jurisdiction in the universe because you can't alter any of that, because if you do, then you'd never be able to transfer between amongst each other. Okay? Commercial law is set. It's set in stone. You can't change it. Roman statutes, well, you can change the statutes. You can amend the statutes. You can there's leverage here. But in the UCC, you have choice of law, 103.6. So you're at liberty now to choose the law that you want to operate. Let's say you're being charged or fined or something else. You have that choice of law. You can go to contract law, you can go to admiralty law, you can go to commercial law, you can go to Roman statute and so on. It's the bond. Okay, the bond is your security, your assurity.
And so,
Ensure means to work towards something, but never really actually get in there to securitize. I'll ensure the security. Okay, insurance is a no interest contract. It's LLC. Assurity means it's done. And you have to put that assurity. If you don't put that assurity to anything that you do and assure somebody, I'm going to build you the most perfect wall, I'm going to build you the most perfect car, and I can assure you that it will work, and it doesn't, what happens? Okay? Whereas everything else, LLC just runs off into the finance and go, well, that's what they do. So assurity, the bonds are fully assured.
okay, and to clear something up, my understanding is that cases that are heard in courts, and like you said, if somebody gets arrested or whatever, there is a bond created that becomes a financial instrument, if you like, or a negotiable
Yes.
instrument, whatever. So every time somebody has a claim number or a case hearing or whatever, there is a bond created. Now, when you try and get that information from the court, they'll go, "What you're talking about, that doesn't exist."
Well,
How?
then you've already caught them on the line.
Yeah.